Hey everyone, in today's video I just want to give a sort of beginner's guide, a little introduction about Aperture. You know, sometimes it's referred to as f-stop, but I just want to give you guys a little, a few tips, just explain what it is and how I sort of use it on a wedding day. So, I have got I've got my camera set up here. I'll just flip that around. So I've got my C200 there, and I've got some characters there. And I'm going to sort of demo, going to film my screen and just give a little demonstration. But first of all, I just want to show you this picture that explains it quite well. So here are the different f-stops, and the lower the number, basically the more light comes in to your camera. So it's as simple as that. So let's go to my setup here and just have a little look at some examples of the f-stop. So try and keep my camera steady. As you can see, and in focus, as you can see, my f-stop is 2.8. So that is the lowest number my camera records to. So if we have a look at my f-stop, as you can see, it's 2.8, and my lens, for my lens, that's the highest f-stop. Well, the lowest f-stop it can do, which is 2.8. So, like that little picture showed you, it's all about the amount of light that comes into the picture. So at 2.8, you'd use this to get like the shallow depth of field. So as you can see, my little man here, he's in focus, but the rest of the background is, or the rest of the guests at this little fake wedding I've set up are out of focus. So let's change the f-stop and let's crank it up to 12 or 13. So as you can see now, it is very dark, because if you refer back to that picture, the aperture is like really small, so not enough light's getting in. So to change this, if you're in sort of a controlled environment, you might be able to put a light on, get some lighting in there. But if you're in a wedding, I crank up the ISO. So let's just increase that to let's get that again. There we are. Let's just do it like that for now. So now you can see the guests are also in focus. So a good sort of rule of thumb there is the higher the number, so the lower the number, as in like 1, the more shallow depth of field you get, and whatever you have in focus as your subject, whatever in the foreground and the background will be blurry basically, and it's as simple as that. So I'm going to change. So let's put a bit of a scenario of the bride walking down. I've just changed my camera settings here to f-stop 8. So it's not too of a low number where loads of light gets in and you're going to have that shallow depth of field. It's a bit higher, but what this does is, if I spin this round again, you get more. So trying to capture the bride coming down and sort of keeping the groom in focus, that all stays more in focus. So as she comes down, you'll see she'll be more in focus when she gets there. Now that's a little tip to record the bride coming down the aisle. But you could get a bit creative. So always depends what the groom's doing. If he's moving around and not if he's looking at her, you might not want to do this. But what can be quite good is, let's change as the bride's coming down, we're going to change again we're going to have a nice depth of field here. So we're going to crank that down. So let's go get the groom in focus. So what you can do is, as the bride's walking down, you can have the groom in focus, and then you could make the bride get in focus and the groom blurry. So that could be quite a good option if you wanted to get a bit creative and stuff like that with your films. Now, so like I said at the beginning, aperture is all to do with the amount of light coming through the lens. You may have noticed some lenses are a lot more expensive than others, and they might have the same focal length. So you could be having a 24 to 70mm, and there could be a £1,000 difference in the lens. That's because of the aperture. So my first lens was on my camera there, and I got the 2.8 aperture. So that's the lowest number it goes to, which I think as a that's quite low. I did have a go on a photographer's lens the other day at a wedding. We had I think a 1.2 50mm prime lens, which was really nice. But if you're looking to get sort of a starter lens to film weddings, I would highly recommend the 24 to 70mm lens, 2.8. And it's all on my website, so you can go check that out. I've got all my kit listed, sort of 2 categories, sort of wedding related and also video production side of it all as well. So, if one of my very first videos I did for my YouTube channel was about cinematic settings. So I always shoot at 24 frames per second, and my camera, so that's always a priority, is the frames per second. Next one for me is the shutter speed. So your shutter speed, to get that nice motion blur, needs to be at double the frame rate. So in this case you'd have 48, which I do on my camera just here. So then the other, because obviously shutter speed affects the light coming into the camera, your ISO and your aperture. So always keep, little top tip is, always keep those settings the same. So if you are filming a wedding, depending on the scenario, a lot of bride prep, I'm probably shooting at 2.8, my aperture. So I will be adjusting my ISO settings to sort of not overexpose the camera or underexpose. They will be the settings I change. When I'm filming the ceremony, like I said, I'm at quite a high f-stop. And then depending on sort of the rest of the day, I might shoot quite low again. Venue shots, sometimes I like to get venue shots through like bushes and stuff. So again, if you want those bushes in the foreground to be blurry, you'd have like a lower number again. But yeah, I think a lot of the time I mix it up sort of low, sort of 2.8, to then maybe if I'm filming guests, might come up like 4, a little bit more than that. but not as high as what I do the ceremony for. So, and I'm spinning the camera around here a little bit. I just want to show you what happens with if you want to keep that low 2.8 or even lower if you've got that lens f-stop. What happens if a lot of light comes in, if you've got too much light, if you're overexposing your camera, because your ISO should be a certain number on the C200. Ideally I have it about 800. That's nice. I wouldn't go any lower, and you can start getting grainy images. So I'm going to switch my light on here. So he is nicely lit up, not too overexposed. So for this demo, I'm going to actually crank up the ISO to pretend that that is really overexposed, and on my meter reading it is way up in the plus. So that is really overexposed. What I love about this C200 is the built-in ND filters, but you can get variable ND filters. So if you are trying to keep your exposure and you are in a lot of sunlight, I highly recommend having ND filters. And as you can see, we are not overexposed anymore. So if you are overexposed and you want to keep that depth of field, that shallow depth of field, you want everything blurry apart from the subject, then you're going to have to get some ND filters. They should be in your kits. They are handy. The variable ones I like, because if you were going from inside to outside, just literally turn the ring and you can change the variable ND filter. Or have like a camera that already has built-in ND filters, which I absolutely love. I love that about the C200. I'm looking to get some C100s as well, as sort of like B and C cams, and they also have built-in ND filters too. So that is, in a nutshell, talking about Aperture, and a little demo there. I hope it, was quite handy. And I hope you learned something. So, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.